All right. So our next topic is variables. So what is a variable? You see, to explain variables, let me just do this, right? So as you may know or may not know, a computer is made up of three main parts. I mean, you learned this. You've learned this before, I'm sure, in SHS, even GHS. We have the CPU, right? The central processing unit. Then we have the RAM, right? Random access memory, or what people usually call the memory. And then we have the input, and then the output. But I said three main parts, but then there's the last one, the storage, so like your hard disk is a storage, permanent storage, right? So these are the main part of a PC, okay? And so I want to explain variables. That's why I'm talking about this. So the CPU, as you already know, that is what does the main calculations, And where does it take the calculations from? It takes the calculation from the RAM. So the RAM will tell it, okay, this is the next thing to do, this is the next thing to do. Add this, subtract this, do that, do that. And after everything is done, when you want to store things permanently, you have to use your hard disk, right? Hard disk. So you have to use that's what I'm referring to as a store here. So the storage, right? So let's repair right now. We have two types of stock. We have the now we have like so your hard disk, right? Or your SSD. For those who are using this new PCs, you have something called the SSD, which is also like hard disk. It's just storage, right? I mean, but that's not the point here. So what I'm saying is that the CPU does the calculation, the RAM, right, holds the code that the CPU is running. So maybe think of the code as line by line, right? And all of them is in the RAM. So the RAM will give the first line to the CPU run, and give the next line to the CPU, something like that, right? So this is just a simple model, but to write Python code, you need to understand this, but I mean, anyone can understand this, just simple. And then like to store things permanently, when you switch off your computer, whatever is stored in the RAM goes away. You don't see it again, you don't find it anywhere again. When you switch it on, whatever your RAM is empty, whatever was stored previously, it's lost. But you and I know that when you store something in your hard drive, right, or your hard disk or whatever, it stays there forever. So that's where people store their movies and all of that. But when programs are running, usually they need to do things fast, and so they store certain things in a RAM, and then when they need to store things forever, they store it into the hard disk, right? And the input output, the name is very clear. The input allows you to input things into the computer. So for instance, your keyboard and your mouse, so if you type something into the computer, you're inputting into it. Or if you're using your phone, not to mention, not to forget that phone is also a computer, right? If you're using a mobile phone and you're touching it, that's an input, right? Because you touch it. And then the output is the screen that you're seeing. It's telling, or maybe the sound you hear when it plays music or something like that. So what is a variable then? All right, so as a programmer, when you're writing code, you need to you need what you call a variable. That's very important. You need to create variables. So variable allows you, the programmer, to instruct your code to store values in the computer's memory, right? So if you want to store something in the computer's RAM, use what we call the variable, right? And how do you well how do we create variables in Python, right? So let me just create another file called a variable.py, right? Remember in our first code, print hello. So let me just copy it here and paste it here, right? And then let me run it. Okay. Now, if even if like I've not said it, you know that the print what prints does is that it prints whatever you want onto the screen, right? So that's the work of the print. So what is a variable? So to create a variable, you need two things. You need to name it, right? So let me see. I want to print a certain message to the screen. So I create a variable called message, right? It's equal to. So this is not normal equal to as you know in math, but you can think of it like that. Hello world, right? And I'll say print message. So instead of saying print hello world directly, I'm saying what? Print what? Message. Now what have I done here? What I've done here is I've instructed the computer to store this string here or this piece of text here, hello world, into a variable called message. So that has been stored into a part of the RAM of the computer, right? So if this is the whole RAM, and my program is running here on this part, maybe the computer gives it a small part to store that hello world and it calls it message, right? Good. And so when I run again, you see that it says hello world. Let me clear this output by clicking here, clear output. Let me click run again. See, hello world. Simple and straightforward. So that is what a variable is, right? And so what's the use of this? Let's say I have a long message. Hello world, comma, this is my first Python programming program. Oh no, this is not first. This is my second Python program. Right? Dot dot dot. I type. I say, hello. This is my second Python program. Right? So I change it here, and then immediately is here. Right? I can do the print more than once. So I can just say print again, print again, print again, print again, and then I say. See, hello, 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 hello. This is my second Python program. It's making that noise, right? So if the variable was not there, that means what I would have to do was to do this, right? And do that, which is a long way, long thing. I just have to type it once here and give it into the variable message. So anytime I use the variable message here, the PC knows, oh, okay, I stored something called message. So let me go and look at what is inside there. It goes to look at what is inside there, and then it prints it for you as you have commanded it to, right? So it won't print anything if you don't tell it to print anything, right? So what you've done here, if I do this, let me clear the output so that you see. So nothing has been printed, right? What happened here is it just said store hello world, this is my second program, into the variable called message. That's all that happened, right? And so it didn't tell it anything else, and so that's why I didn't see any output here, because you've not told it to print anything or output anything or something, right? So so the next thing is, in Python there are four main types of variables. We have the string, we have the integer, we have the float, that's numbers with decimal places, and we have boolean. You know, all know integer, right? And integer is a number without a it's a number, yeah. An integer, you know what an integer is, right? So basically what are we trying to say here, that we have four different types of variables, right? we have the string. And string, another way you can think of a string is like a text, right? A text. So this variable is it's called it's a string variable, right? So this is how you create a string variable. You put it in uh quotation mark. Is this quotation mark? I don't know. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of quotation mark something. Yeah. So then, hey, I'm a string. I'm a string. I I am a string. Good. Right. So this is an integer. This is a string variable. Right. Uh, Another way to do string variable is instead of using, you see this one, the quotation mark is just one. I mean, one quotation mark, a single quotation mark. You can use a double quotation marks, right? You can say, hey, I am a string. This is a variable, right? Sorry, let me call this one message 2. I am a string 2. Yeah. So if I print message and clear this and say, and hey, I am a string. If I print message 2, let me clear the output. Hey, I am a string 2, right? Yeah. So these are all strings, right? And there's even another type of string. Let me call this message 3, where you use, so you put it, you make 3 quotes here and 3 quotes here, and you type whatever you want in the middle, right? So message 3, you can see that, right? So this triple quote, message 4, I can use single quotes also. It's the same as message 3, right? So if I say message 4 and I run, oh, right? So this is what we call like this one we are using a triple quote. So this one we are using single quote, we are using single double quote, and triple double quote, triple single quote, right? So these are all strings. Okay, a string is a string, right? It's just text, normal text. Okay, yeah. So that's one type of variable. And so what I've done here is just to show you, if you want to create a string variable, like how you do it, right? You just put it in between quotation marks or triple quotation marks. So then the question is, what is the difference between the single one and the ones with the three, right? So here's what I'm going to let me demonstrate to you. So with the triple ones, you see, I can press enter here and have something like this, right? Line breaks, cool. And even if I run this, you see the line breaks are there fine. But with the single ones, I just can't do that. If you try to do that, Python is going to give you an error, right? End of line while scanning literal. So you can't do line break in the single double quotes, but with the triple ones you can do the line breaks in there, right? So that's the difference between this one and that one. So that's for strings. Now the next thing is integer, right? So number, an integer, you know, an integer like whole number, you know, positive and negative numbers are integers, right? So I can have 1. If I say print number, and what are we seeing here? Oh, okay. So what you can see that it printed this one, and again it came to print 1 because we have 2 print messages here, right? So if we don't want this one to show, what we can do is we can say, we can comment it out. So we'll talk about comments soon. But comments will tell Python to ignore it. And how do you comment? You put a hash sign in front of the code there. And once you do that, it means Python will know that, okay, don't run this line. So when I do that, you see I only have the one here, right? So for integer, it's just integer. Integer is an integer, right? So you get the idea. So I can type anything. It's an integer. If I say number one. So let's see. Right? Integer. All right. So there you have it. And in Python, integers is 64-bit. You should find that out, right? So we have different types. We have 64-bit integers and 32-bit integer. I'm sure Python integers. Let's just see. So if you're not sure about something, you can always Google it. Integer size. Yeah. As an integer takes 32 bits. So what is 32 bits? It's 2 raised to the power 32. That's a big number. That's it. Anyway, so we'll calculate that very soon. And then the next thing on the line is float. Right? So what's the float? I mean, numbers with decimal point in them, So next thing we're gonna have. So let's comment this one out. Let's go. Oh, floating. Right? So 2.2 is a floating number. To print floating. Right. Let's clear this and run. Let's clear the damn thing. Right. Good. You see 2.2. Yeah. So floating numbers are like, like decimal places numbers, and then 2.2.2. Oh, sorry. So you can't do that. I've not seen any number like that before. So floating 2. Okay. Then the next thing is Boolean. So Boolean is true or false. Be false. Say be false. So how to say false in Python is just you start with capital F, right? And when you print be false, be false. There's a be true. So I'm creating a variable and I'm saying that computer go and store this thing there for me and call it be true. So next time when I say be true, you know that I'm talking about it. The variable and I store true in it, right? It's that simple and short and straightforward. So these are all the variables we can have in Python, right? So these are the basic variables we have in Python. So then what? I mean, if we can just if it's just for printing on the screen, no. So you can do things with variables, right? So for instance, if I have this string and I have this string, I can combine the two of them to form a new string, right? So how do I do that? Well, let me create another variable called new string. New string. It's a message plus message 2, right? So it's a print new string. And then what happens when I print? It says, see, hey, I am string. Hey, I am string 2. You see? Hey, I am string. Hey, I am string 2. You see that? Right. But you can see that message is here I'm string, message 2 is here I'm string 2. And so when I say message plus message 2, you see, and store it in new string, and I say print new string, it gives me here I am string and here I am string 2, right? So I'm going to do something here. I'm going to say another plus, right? And this time around I'm going to put the string directly here, right? And I'm going to leave space inside. This way, let me clear the output. I print again. See, now there's a space, right? Hey, I am a string. Hey, I am a string too, right? Right. So that's one thing you can do with the variables. So if you have one string and another string, you can combine the two of them to make a new string, right? So for instance, let's say that we have a user. Um, we have something like name, or your name is Kofi, right? And I can say, okay, greeting. I say good morning, and I leave a space here plus your name, right? Now let me print the greeting. Good morning, Kofi. So you see, there's the interesting part of variable. If I change this to Kwesi, then I'll have good morning, Kwesi, right? So that's what that's for the strings. Now, of course, if you come down to the integers and the floats, right, or the numbers, you know that we can do things to numbers, right? We can add, we can subtract, we can multiply, raise to power. We can do all of that. And then what else we do? We can divide. So let's see how we can divide numbers in Python. So let's say that I have number 1 and 1 is equal to 2 and 2 is equal to 3. Then if I want to add n1 and 2, you can say, if I say, oh, let me just print it directly, n1 plus n2, right? What do I get? 5. That's 1, 2 plus 3. Or I can just say n3 is equal to n1 plus n2. Now print n3, and that'll be 5, right? So for variables, you can create variables anyhow you want and store them in new variables, and that feel free, do what you want, right? And so let's say n4, we can say n4 is n1 minus n2. So now when I print n4, what am I going to get? Yes, you guys right, minus 1, because n1 is 2 and 3 is 3. Sorry, n1 is 2 and 2 is 3, so n1 minus n2 is 4. So let's say n5, n1 times n2, right? And then when I run it, what do I have? Sorry, I'm printing n4. Sorry, so n5, and what do I have? So let me just clear this guy. I have 6, right? So it's just that simple and straightforward. No branching here and there, nothing. And then the last thing we've done, add, subtract, multiply. Yeah, let's do raise to the power n6, right? The n6, let's say n1, we want to say n1 raised to the power n3, n2, right? So to do that, we say we use the sign, the star sign twice. So this is the star sign. The one we use for multiplication is the star sign, and you can get the star sign by pressing shift and then the number 8 on your keyboard, as you can see that. And then I say n2, so that's n1 is what, 2, and n2 is what, 3. So that's 2 raised to the power 3. And as you guess, 2 raised to the power 3, we don't even have to think about it. Let's just press enter, and then Python will calculate it for us, right? Power 3. So as you remember, I said that an integer in Python we looked at something here which says, oh, an integer takes 4 bytes, right? So if an integer takes 4 bytes, and I said 4 bytes is 2 raised to the power 32, so let's print 2 raised to the power 32 and see. 2 raised to the power is the star sign twice, and then 32. And when we print that, so that's this. And now that sources and pass it to 4. That's interesting. Anyway, so that's it. And then the last thing is booleans, but we'll come to that one in the next the operations. You can do operations on booleans. We'll come to that very soon. So what happens when you multiply a number and a string? Oh, we didn't do the floating. So floating too, you can do the same thing. You can add, multiply, and we've not done divide, right? So let's say n7 is equal to n1 divided. You just say / divided by n2, right? So that's divided. So that's 2 divided by 3. Oh, we got 0. Got 0. Got 0. Oh, damn it. Yeah, right. Okay, so it seems we've been running with the Python version 2. So sorry about that. Anyway, let's just use a terminal here. So when I cd into week 1, I say Python 3 variable, right? So gives me 0. Oh yeah, so now I'm getting the answer I want. So you know how to open a terminal. You can come here, there's a shortcut for it, but I don't know if it's control and then the backtick sign, right? So we can just press here to get it back. And then we can go here, terminal, sorry. So cd week 1. So Python 3, and then we are running variable. Right, that's 0.666. When I type clear variable. Now for Windows, those using Windows, if you type clear, it will not clear. So 0.066 is right. So that's what we are expecting. Or if I change it to back, this, what do you think will happen? It will give you an error. So n2 divided by n1. That's 1.5. That's 3 divided by 2. Right? We all know it's 1.5. Right. Good. So that's the arithmetics you can perform here. And you can do more things, right? So any addition and subtraction you're doing should follow something we call what do we call this? You all know about board mass, right? Good. So if I say, okay, now that you've learned how to do addition, so do for me 2 times 3 divided by 2, right? So that's what you want to do. The 2 times 3 divided by 2. Save. Now will be running from here. That's 3. Yeah, that makes sense, right? Because the 2 cancel the 2, and then okay. Let me see one of those controversial podcast situations. 2 plus 2 times 3 divided by 5. All of it divided by 5, right? So we want to have, well, let me just use a variable, n8 is equal to 2 plus 3 times 2 plus 2 times 3 divided by 5. So we are saying all of them divided by 5. So 2 plus 2 times 3, right? Now since we want all of these guys to be divided by 5, we have to wrap them in brackets. Then we do divide by 5, right? The print and 8. So if I run this guy, get 1.6, right? I don't know if that's what I'm looking at, but because this will be 2 times 3, that will be 6, plus this, that will be 8. So 8 divided by 5, yeah. So that's probably 1.6. Right. So if you know your board mass, you shouldn't have problem with these kind of things, right? However, if it was something like 2 plus 2 divided by 5, right? Then times 3. You see that the 3 is out of here, so it won't be like this. So let me show you. And 9 will be, we are saying 2 plus 2. That's what we are dividing by 5, right? And then now after that, we multiply the whole thing by 3, right? So that will be, it's quite different. See, this is different from this guy, or from what we did in first place. So when we do that, we get a different answer, right? So if you know about math, as I'm saying, you should be fine. So that is all I have to say about variables for now. See you in the next